Welcome to the Sonia Buchanan Show, where we inspire one life, one smile at a time. Hello, everyone. It is time for the Sonia Buchanan Show, where we focus on one life, one smile at a time. Listen, we have a heated discussion today. I want to talk about sexual harassment. And the name of the podcast today is called Hidden Things. I want to talk about sexual harassment because this subject and this behavior continuously to come up in our world. It comes up and is presented in the news that is being done by high-profile males. Now, I don't know any of these people that I'm going to discuss today, but I want to actually bring forth this subject because it needs to be brought up every year. Now, I will say that I've worked at many corporations, and one of the things that is presented to us every single year is sexual harassment, what it is, what is not, telephone numbers that you can report if you suspect that you have been sexually harassed or you suspect that other people have been sexually harassed. Now, these are the proper procedures that is in corporate America, that you can report these things. You don't even have to be the one who being sexually harassed. And if you see sexual harassment done to an employer or an employee, you can call anonymously this number and you can report it. No one has to know that it is you reporting it. But if you suspect it, they have procedures, they have a department that handles those cases and they investigate. Now, this is in corporate America. Now, I'm not exactly sure of how it's done in entertainment, but we have a governor of New York. He is Andrew Cuomo. He's an American politician. He's an author and a lawyer. He's serving as the 56th governor of New York since 2011. He is now in the news for sexual harassment. Now, I want to talk about sexual harassment because there is another case with Bill Cosby. And I want to discuss it because the women wait many years, 5 to 10 years to report these cases. Now, the entertainment and then there is work environments. Now, I don't know anything about entertainment, as I stated before, but the governor is in a work environment, and I am pretty sure that they have procedures where you can report these cases to a department that handles the investigations for that. Now, why people are waiting 5 to 10 years to report, I believe that I was sexually harassed, I have no idea. I don't understand that. I don't understand why they didn't deal with the uncomfortable gesture or why they did not handle that. I don't know. I was not there, but these are some of the things I want to talk about today to bring an awareness of wise morality of thinking. If you're feeling uncomfortable with something, report it. We as an adult have to be confident in who we are and what we feel like that we have been violated in our boundaries. There is nothing in this world, I believe, is that important that it violates your comfortableness with someone else. There's nothing in the world. There's nothing that important. No position, there's no money. But if you feel like that you have been violated as an adult, touched in any way, there's nothing more important than dealing with that. Because that right there will leave scars for life. Waiting 5 to 10 years to report a sexual harassment case at it is always a very strange time. And it makes me question, why is it being presented? Now, as I stated, let me just read this quote to you for the sake of this podcast. And the quote says, "Come to know what is in front of you, and that which is hidden from you will become clear to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not become manifest." Let me say that again. Come to know what is in front of you, and that which is hidden from you will become clear to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not become manifest. Now, that quote can be presented at the time of any sexual harassment cases. You don't have to me, I feel like you don't have to wait years to report something. 5 to 10 years, how do you remember that? Well, I'm sure if you were sexual harassment in that case where it left you in a devastated position, it would have left you in a devastated position that time, that moment. Insecurities, if you have a self-seeking thing where you this is being presented to you, and in your mind, now this is what I'm thinking, and in your mind you're thinking, oh, this is a high profile person, this is a lawyer, I can get this position, I can move up in the corporation. But when things does not work out that way, now these are some of the things that to me causes suspicion. I can move up in this way, but when it did not work out or do not work out, then years later, it could be reported as sexual harassment. Even though it may have been sexual harassment, but because things did not work out, now it's sexual harassment and I need to bring forth this information. Now, there are many thoughts that you can think of sexual harassment, but this is not podcast is not for me to judge anyone. This podcast is being presented so wisdom can be presented and start thinking about, let's start talking about sexual harassment, not just in corporate America, but with our families, with our children, starting from the time they're 6 years old. This is a subject that needs to be discussed because it continues to be brought up. Maybe people are not aware of what sexual harassment is. Maybe they are not aware of what behavior is happening, or not aware if you feel this kind of feeling, there is a sense that maybe someone stepping over in your boundaries. This is something that needs to be discussed. Like I stated before, in corporate America, this is presented to us every single year. We have to sign off on the paper that we understood, that we read this material. And here are the numbers. You keep these numbers. It is brought forth, even though we have the numbers, but the numbers and the email addresses and the department is brought to us every single year, that you do not forget that there is a department that will investigate cases. I don't know if the United States have a phone number that you can report sexual harassment, but I do know that when you are in a work environment, there is a department that investigate these cases. Now let's talk about, because this is, of course, my opinion, and I want to bring my opinion and my thoughts that I conclude as wisdom. Now, let's talk about the Bill Cosby case. His case was years later, more than 10 years later, that women came forth and say he sexually harassed him. And there was one lady that was at his home and stated that he gave her a pill, put her to sleep, and he sexually harassed her. My question was, why were you at his house and you know he is married? And where was his wife? That is one of the things that I want to talk about today, because these are some of the things that we have to take responsibility about our actions. One of the things that I do know, when you are dealing with married people and they are in a high profile, it doesn't even necessarily have to be in a high profile. But when you're dealing with married people and you go into someone's house that is married and the wife is not there at the home, you should leave, because that's just put yourself in a situation where something could happen. Why the woman was at his house and his wife was nowhere around, that should have given wisdom to say, okay, I'm going to leave. We should meet at a public place. Or where's your wife? You have to ask these questions and not put yourself in these positions. Not, like I stated, I am not here to judge, but I am here to bring forth wisdom on this subject, because it keeps being brought up and people's lives are being destroyed over bad decisions, over things that they're not thinking about. I don't know if because Cosby is a entertainer, that maybe you were thinking that I was going to get a position, I was going to get a spot in a movie or in a show, and I'm going to just do this because of what? Nevertheless, you cannot, no matter how much you're trying to proceed a position in life, you cannot ignore moral wisdom at any cases. There's nothing more important than keeping your life morally correct when you're dealing with things, when you're dealing with human beings and dealing with high profile men, and when you're dealing with high profile men dealing with people who are not at your level, or however it is. Like I stated before, this podcast is not to judge, but this podcast is to bring forth just segments of wisdom thinking in situations, because this subject continues to be brought up. Now with Andrew Cuomo, he is, again, the 56th governor of New York since 2011. Now have several women have come forth, stated that he sexually harassed her. Now, he is a good-looking guy. And honestly, and I'm laughing about it because, do we say sexual harassment? Or, I'm like, okay, I don't think I probably would have reported it. I probably would have, if I felt uncomfortable, if he had done something like that to me, I probably would have dealt with it at that moment. Like, listen, whispered, listen, that's inappropriate. I'm not accepting that, And I think that we have to take responsibility and speaking up at the time of the incident and say, I'm not comfortable with this, or we can have dinner and let's talk about what you just did, And I think that is okay. I don't know if people are like scared to say something to people who are harassed. And if someone says while they listen to this podcast, have you ever been sexually harassed? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I have been approached on many occasions, and I dealt with it. I dealt with it because what I do know is that if there's not a third party there in the midst of you being touched or harassed, there is no witnesses. And so you can deal with that situation right that moment and just say a couple of things and deal with it, because there's not a third party to witness either way. But you can handle that situation the first time. This is how I am thinking. This is how I have dealt with it. And usually when you come aggressively as a woman to a man that is harassing you or sexual harassing you, and you come aggressively and deal with it, it most often it stops. But if it does not, like I stated, in corporate America, in a work environment, they have a department where you can report that information anonymously, and it will be investigated immediately. Okay, so coming forth, waiting 5 to 10 years. I'm just a little perplexed about that. I don't understand it, why you didn't deal with it. And it destroys people's lives. And it kind of questions, did you have a motive as to why you waited so long? Just a lot of little things that I was thinking about. But I want to talk about a couple of things too on this podcast. And again, our subject is called Hidden Things. Now, I want to share one of the situations that I have dealt with sexual harassment. Now, I had a friend years later who had a fiance, and they had been dating for a long time. They had a son together. And the young lady that was my friend, she discovered that she had family and overseas, and she discovered, and she went overseas to meet her new family. She was gone for about a month, and I had been friends with this young lady for a length of time, but her fiance continued to come to my house. Now, the first time he came, I thought maybe, he was just, coming to say hi. I didn't think anything of it. The second time he came, and every time he came unannounced. The second time he came, I let him in, I was talking to him. I thought just maybe, his fiance was out of the country. he was just needing somebody to talk to and to say hi while I was doing my little thing. And, but the third time when he came, now I'm getting irritated because I'm wondering, why you keep coming to my house? Your fiance is in another country. Why you keep coming to my home? The fourth time he came, I left him outside of the door and told him he had to leave. Now, he came the fifth and the sixth time. Now, the sixth time, I didn't open the door. I just left him outside. I just refused to open the door because now at this point, I knew that he keep coming here for a reason. Now, the seventh time he came, I let him in and he approached me and discussed that he was interested. And now this is the seventh time, you guys, And I looked at him, I says, no, I'm not interested in that, because to me, I feel like when you violate like that, that is gross to me. I'm just not that type of person. I'm not that type of female to involve myself in that situation. That is just gross to me, really gross. But the seventh time. But when my friend came back from out of the country, she was my hairdresser. And we were sitting and doing my hair. She was doing my hair and I was at her shop, and she has her own business. So she was equipped. She wasn't in corporate America, but she did have her own business. And I felt necessary while I was sitting in her chair to let her know what happened. Now, I had to do that because he comes to the shop to work around, and I did not feel comfortable with him coming to the shop with she not knowing what he did while she was gone. And I revealed to her what happened. And she stopped and she said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes, I'm serious." I said, I had to just kind of nip that. I said, because after the seventh time, I was ready to punch him. Like, stop coming here. I'm not here for you. I'm not your friend. And so later on, while we still doing my hair, he comes in and she says, "Hold on a second. We're going to play with this." We made a joke about it because she and I were friends. There was no reason for us to not be friends. This is a case of sexual harassment that is happening with friendship. I didn't have a number to call. I didn't have a number to report, but I had the duty to report it to the fiance because she and I was friends. And I told her what he did. And I told her he continued to come over. And so when he comes to the shop, he comes in, she makes a joke and say, "Hey, I heard you and Sonia is going to go on a date, and you're going to pick her up at her house." We just made a joke about it. We just kind of laughed at him, and he was completely embarrassed. He should have been embarrassed. He should have been inappropriately embarrassed because that's exactly what we did. We mocked him. And maybe this is not the case. Maybe you listening to this podcast and you're thinking, why did you mock him? Because he was inappropriate. He was disrespectful. He crossed the line. He crossed boundaries. He totally disrespected his family, his son and his fiance. And he disrespected me as a single woman that's friend to his fiance. And every time I would go to the shop and get my hair done, we will mock him. We will laugh at him because he needed to be addressed. And that's how she felt like she needed to address him. And until one day I was at her house and he was so upset because this is maybe 6 months later and we still harassing him about that situation. And he just got mad. He says, "I don't appreciate y'all keep mocking me." Well, I don't appreciate you continue to harass and mock my friend. And so after he got upset about it, we kind of let it go because I think he knew at that moment that his behavior was inappropriate. Now, that was one of the cases of sexual harassment on my part that I wanted to share. But there have been several cases that I've dealt with when I have worked on jobs, but it didn't go no farther than what it did when it was presented to me because I am a very, very closed person. I don't really allow people to come into my space, and I have to handle things, but I'm not exactly sure why other women don't handle situations when they feel like that their boundaries have been crossed. And we have to probably start giving classes or just talking about it. What is sexual harassment? What it feels like. If you're feeling uncomfortable with someone, address it at that moment. We have to get that confidence as ladies and as men, because now we have men that are being sexual harassed. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing to be insecure about. But we have to emphasize that you have to get a confidence in yourself to address a situation and not worry about the rebound of what will happen if you address it. This is something I believe that we have to talk about, because this situation could ruin people's lives. Such as these men, you waiting 5 to 10 years and reporting sexual harassment. Now we have to spend money in investigating something that should have been dealt with the day one when it happened. You guys, I just wanted to discuss the sexual harassment cases, and also, just kind of discuss this subject with your families, with your children, with your teenagers, with your friends, with your business owners or your companions. Discuss this situation and research it and find out what it is, what makes it uncomfortable. Are there proper words to address sexual harassment to someone that has crossed their boundaries? Like I stated with my friend, I felt necessary to inform her what he did. Now, I sat there and thought about it. Should I tell her or should I keep it a secret? Now, if I did not tell her and I had to sit there in that chair seeing him every Saturday, it would make me a liar. It really would have made me a liar. It would have made me this is how I felt, that I was feeling like I was a fraud sitting in her chair and not being able to report what her fiance was doing while she was in another country visiting her family. I just felt like it was my duty to just tell her. And because I was not comfortable with that. And definitely I was not comfortable being in her chair every Saturday and having to see him. I felt uncomfortable with that. So to get it off my chest, I had to tell her. And to me, I feel like this is something that we should express to women and men, to get it off your chest and to express it at the time when it happens, because it's very important. It released so much stress. It released so much anxiety over the years. This is something that's very important, so we will not have 5 to 10 years later reporting something, interrupting people's lives. Now we're looking at this governor as, you were so compassionate during the pandemic. Now you under investigation. I don't know what that is about. Like I stated, this podcast is not to judge people, but this podcast is to bring an awareness that we should be aware of what to do, what steps to take. How it makes you feel, or you feel like your boundaries have been stepped over. These are some of the things that we should really think about. But listen, you guys, I thank you again. This is the end of our podcast. And again, our podcast title is Hidden Things. And I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for coming back to listen to our podcast. And I thank you for the support. Again, this is your girl, Sonia Buchanan, with the Sonia Buchanan Show, where we focus on one life, one smile at a time. Until next week, you guys have a great week. Bye. Thank you for listening to our broadcast, the Sonia Buchanan Show, where we focus on one life, one smile at a time. Until next time, bye, you guys.